All right. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Five Nights at Freddy's fantastic time. And we have on tap for this week is how FNAF Ultimate Custom Night solves Golden Freddy years ago by T Dreads, another video recommended to me by you lovely people. So, first of all, I want to say I appreciate all of you for not only watching the videos, but also going down in the comments and recommended me other videos to watch because I like it. I like the suggestions and it allows me to, get some new perspectives and see other FNAF content creators and see their perspectives, their theories, and see where they're coming from. And I'm very curious about Ultimate Custom Night and, kind of get on that top a little bit of like other people's perspectives is ever since I started watching other people's videos that you guys have recommended, I've been getting some shit on like some of my interpretations, my theories, my perspectives, really tied to Cassidy more than anything. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. Again, I've said this time and time again. Stuff that I say in my FNAF interpretations, my FNAF perspectives, my own FNAF theories, if you agree with it, let me know about it. But also, if you vehemently disagree with my opinion, my theory, let me know about it. Call me out. Call me a dumbass, whatever. Like, I can take it. Because at the end of the day, I think they're all theories. They're all fun, thoughtful experiments at the end of the day. And I think the more people that give in to their own interpretations, their own theories, and don't have like such a hive mind where it's like, oh, this popular creator says this happened, so that must be how, it must be in the franchise. Like, no, I think the more people that have their own interpretations, perspectives, the better and more healthy this franchise is. But the reason why I say that is some of the, ways I've got about talking about Cassidy and my own head canon of what I thought has given me some shit. Like, for instance, in Ultimate Custom Night, there's a rare image you see, when you die. It's a weird glitchy image with a face. And what I've done is I took that image, which clearly has had a lot of filters and has a lot of effects on it, because believe it or not, that's not how a normal person looks, right? That's not how a normal person looks. So I've, taken the liberty of going to Photoshop and then done some effects, done some editing of like, hey, this is what the picture originally looked like before all those edits were applied. And it's a person with blue eyes. Now, Cassidy, who we presume to be that is, who the spirit, that's the, glitchy face we're looking at. Cassidy, if that is who Cassidy is in the games, that is not who Cassidy described in the books. In the games, again, if we are assuming that the glitchy face is Cassidy, it's a boy with blue eyes. But Cassidy in the books is a girl with black hair and either pigtails or a ponytail. Completely different. But again, that's when we're getting into different conversations, different can of worms of game canon versus book canon. So I'm very curious about what Ultimate Custom Night means. And again, speaking of Ultimate Custom Night, speaking of Cassie, another interpretation, another headcanon that I've had people give me shit for is the Secret with Old Man Consequences, of how my interpretation of why you see a lake with Old Man Consequences and you are playing as like a glitching bear and you end the minigame by drowning yourself, that, in my perspective, is Scott basically pointing to us as the player, as the community, that, hey, Ultimate Custom Night is a game that is tied to Cassidy, and this is how Cassidy died. Because we know, I think it's been outright confirmed, one of the very few things that's been confirmed in this series, that Cassidy's death is more brutal than the other child victims. That's why, People believe they're the one you should not have killed. That's why they're the vengeful spirit, because their death was more brutal than everybody else. Which is bizarre because it's, making the other death, child death seem okay because they're the vengeful spirit. But those other kids who died, they're fine. Like, who cares about them? But Cassidy, the one you did more brutal stuff to, yeah, you shouldn't have killed them, oh, William Afton. Right. So I'm very curious to see what this Ultimate Custom Night theory is all about, because, again, maybe I've been misinformed a lot. And look, if I have, hey, I'll call myself out on it. But before we get into this video, believe it or not, that was not the witty banter section. This is going to be the witty banter section. Obviously, as always, now I know about it, I'm going to put chapters in this video. So if you want to skip this portion and you clicked on this video for, Ultimate Custom Night FNAF Golden Freddy talk, you can skip to whatever time is where the witty banter section ends. But the witty banter section, the reason why I want to talk about this week is it is no secret that I have talked ad nauseum, and I've been part of the 2K community for a while. I officially started doing streams in NBA 2K23, but my experience, my history with the 2K franchise goes back way further than that. If we want to get really granular, technically the first ever YouTube channel that I created in my life when I was, I think, 14, my first ever channel that I created, it was NBA 2K14 gameplay, specifically my career on the Xbox 360. And then it goes back even further than that. I've officially been introduced to the franchise in 2K11. So, however you want to slice it, I've been around the 2K community for a while. And, I've also talked about it that, hey, I've been around for a while, 2K11 to, we're coming to 2K27, that's 16 years of my life that I've been attached to a franchise. And obviously, all things must come to an end. Nothing lasts forever. There's a time where you talk about retirement and you have that thought in your mind where you're like, okay, where is the end goal for me? I've been around for 14, 15, 16 years. Where is the end goal? Is there any more I can do or accomplish that gives me any fulfillment? Right? Upon retirement. And I've always had it in the back of my mind, which, if that's the case, if you have retirement in the back of your mind, chances are it's sooner rather than later. But 2K recently came out and said that 2K27, the game that's coming out this year, at the end of August, at the end of this month, they decided to go in a whole different direction and decide to say we're going to spend one day and releasing all the information on our upcoming release. So for the next 3 weeks, because it comes out August 29th, I believe. So for 3 weeks, there's no news, no content, no information, absolutely nothing. We are completely in the dark. Here's a couple problems with that. They are finally, announcing the 2K Day where they have all the information. It's happening a week before 2K releases. At that point, why does it matter? At that point, don't release any information at all. Because if it's a week before 2K's coming out, chances are people have already bought the game, regardless of what has been said, what hasn't been said. So a week before does absolutely nothing. And two, get into more granular topics about it, is it's not only a week before 2K's coming out, but it's also the day after that 2K is offering this like discount or sale where it's like, hey, if you've bought previous, editions, previous versions of like 2K26, 2K25, you get a discount as part of the loyalty program because of how loyal and how you're a recurring customer for the franchise. It is the day after that discount period ends is when they are releasing the content and news. The day after that discount ends. That cannot be a coincidence. So, as a consumer, we lose. Not only are we left in the dark, if it's a week before the game comes out, chances are you've already pre-ordered the game. So Take-Two Interactive has already won without saying anything because they've already won. They already got your money. So they win. We as a consumer lose. And then 3, that can't be a coincidence that of all days you decide to finally release information and news, it's the day after the discount loyalty program ends. It's the day after. So, hey, if the news comes out and you want to pre-order the game, now you got to pay even more money for the game to come out for you to get the game. You got to pay even more money. That can't be a coincidence. So, I say all that to say, I fully disagree with that direction. And if this is a sign of what's to come, this is how 2K is going to treat us as the consumer, where, hey, we're going to intentionally withhold information until the very last possible moment, a week before the game comes out, where chances are you've already pre-ordered the game anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's just a technicality at that point. If that's a sign of what's to come, then me retiring, me stepping away, and me leaving the 2K community as a whole, something that, again, I've been around since 2K11. Me being around for a long time, if that's this direction of where they are going, then me retiring is going to be an even easier decision than I could have thought. And originally, I thought it was going to be a very tough decision because, again, it's very tough to say goodbye to something that you have spent the last, 14, 15 years of your life in anything, not just 2K, just anything. Think about something that you have been doing for 6, 7, 8, 10 years. Is there anything you've been doing for over a decade that you've committed your life over a decade for? Saying goodbye to it just like that. That's not easy, regardless of what it is. And this is the direction 2K is going. Me stepping away and retiring, yeah, it's going to be even easier because this is not the franchise that I once grew up and loved. And if 2K has been like this since the very beginning, I would not have been around since 2K11. I can promise you that. It would have been 1 year, and then that would have been it. But anyways, that's enough BS. That's enough bantering. Time to talk about the main reason we y'all clicked on this video.
When my original intention didn't come across like I intended. In that case, I make it a point to clarify in the next game.
Scott Cawthon said this when talking about how he reveals the story of FNAF. But there's a problem. Because if that's true, then one game was supposed to clear up everything about Golden Freddy. Yet here we are, 8 years later, still scratching our heads. Golden Freddy is the most debated character in the series.
Really? He's the most debated character in the series. Maybe. I mean, here's the thing about it. Is he the most debated character? I would say he's without a doubt the most talked about character in the lore in the franchise, because ever since the FNAF 1 Golden Freddy Easter egg popped up, people were doing clickbait titles and thumbnails being like, oh, who the hell is this, yellow golden bear glitching into my office saying causing my game to crash? Like, ever since then, Golden Freddy has been the linchpin if you want to get views in FNAF, is you have something related to Golden Freddy. But the most talked about and most confusing character in the franchise, I mean, I would say no. I would say there's other characters that at least get a shout. I think Greg from Security Breach has a very solid case to be one of the most confusing characters in what he is, who he is. Everyone wants to know who is Gregory. I want to know how is Gregory. Is he some orphan lost child? Is he connected to the FNAF 4 crying child in some way? Is he connected to the FNAF 4 crying child in robot form? And that's why he looks different once Freddy gets the Rotzi eyes. Is he Dr. Rabbit, where he's this genius hacker, and Gregory is more of a villain than what we are shown in the game of Security Breach? I think Gregory gets a solid shout of being confusing and not really being sure of who he is. So I'll say Gregory is one. Who else? I would say, honestly, Michael Afton could be another character that is pretty confusing. Because despite us believing that we play as Michael Afton in FNAF 1, FNAF 2, FNAF 3, FNAF 4, FNAF 5 Sister Location, FNAF 6, right? We believe we're playing as Michael Afton through all those games. Michael Afton's still confusing because, on one hand, people believe that, you know, he's going location to location to try to, you know, help restore the kids and lay their souls to rest and undo the wrongdoings of his father, William Afton. And he's, you know, more of a good guy. But then on the flip side, and the FNAF 2 movie kind of talked about this as well, that he's more of a villain that is there to carry on his father's legacy. And another interpretation in the games that people brought up, I don't know how much legs this has to stand on, but I know one interpretation, ever since Sister Location went more futuristic and sci-fi, and we were talking about Remnant, one of the interpretations out there is Michael Afton is a villain, and he is responsible for luring more and more kids to the Funtime animatronics to be killed. Because remember, the Funtime animatronics were made to lure and encapsulate kids. That's why there's the voice mimics and sound allures. That's why, like, Funtime Freddy's stomach catch is massive, and you can even see in the blueprints of Sister Location, where if you look at the Funtime Freddy blueprints, you can literally see a child hunkered down inside his stomach hatch. But that was the point of the Funtime animatronics, to lure and encapsulate as many kids as possible, scoop them out, and harness their remnant. Michael Afton could have been responsible where, hey, get as many kids as possible to these Funtime animatronics, because once you get close enough, I've been seeing with the Circus Baby cupcake minigame, once you get close enough, they have stomach claw grips that grab you, pull you inside, and scoop you and harness your remnant. So I would say Michael Afton is another character that is widely debated in the FNAF community, whether he's a good guy or bad guy. Same thing with Gregory, community or not. Is there any other characters that I'm forgetting? I'm sure there's one that is just obvious to me, I'm just forgetting. Maybe other characters will come to mind as we continue on this video. But again, that's not to take away. Alright, I want to let you know, comments, do not attack me. This is not to take away from that interpretation that Golden Freddy is a highly debated character by actually playing devil's advocate. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm simply doing is call attention to other characters that may get a shout or at least be in the conversation for that take of being the most controversial and debated character in the franchise. I'm just simply offering up other perspectives. It's not taken away from Golden Freddy's perspective at all. All right? Comments?
But here's the issue. We've tricked ourselves into thinking we already understand him. We've heard the most popular theory, we've seen the explanations, and assumed that the case is basically solved. But what if that confidence is exactly what's wrong? Because the game we're about to look at doesn't just add more clues. It might actually be Scott's way of piecing together his original intention. And it all comes from one of the most overlooked games in the series, Ultimate Custom Night. Scott designed this game to finally answer the Golden Freddy question. Today, we're going step by step through the roadmap of voice lines, mechanics, interactions, and cutscenes that may reveal what Golden Freddy actually is. But how do we actually know that Ultimate Custom Night was designed to solve Golden Freddy? Because if that sounds like a stretch, it's not. In fact, once you look at what the game actually is, it becomes really hard to argue the opposite. The game is called Ultimate Custom Night. Custom Night. Let me show you something. This is Five Nights at Freddy's 1, and there's a unique mechanic hidden inside its Custom Night. When you enter 1987, you get this. After that, Scott creates FNAF 2's Custom Night, and when every animatronic is set to its maximum difficulty, its ultimate level, it's called this. And we're not done. What's the hardest night in FNAF 4 called? In the files, it's Shadow Freddy, who shares the same exact design and an undoubtable connection to Golden Freddy.
Also, if you're getting granular, this location Custom Night also has Golden Freddy mode as the hardest mode. But Shadow Freddy and Golden Freddy, I mean, I guess, because in FNAF 4 and the minigames when you're going through the pizzeria, you see a Shadow Freddy and a Shadow Bonnie protruding on the wall. And obviously we know in that game, there's two animatronics on the stage, a Golden Freddy and a Golden Bonnie. So, yeah, I guess. Okay.
Now, backtrack to FNAF 3. What's the hardest mode there? Nightmare Mode, a name that will later be tied directly to another Golden Freddy adjacent character. And then there's Sister Location, a game Golden Freddy isn't even in.
Even though it's hard to say whether Nightmare is an actual character in universe, like an actual animatronic, or just character that was designed for that game. Kind of like, Nightmarion in the same token, where, is it an actual animatronic or is it just a game character for the game itself? Like, I don't believe there's a Nightmarion animatronic, right? But there's the puppet animatronic in FNAF 2 and what have you. But I think I've always thought that was the same kind of thing with Nightmare, is that he's never actually an animatronic. He's just a game character. Again, like the Nightmarion, where Nightmare is the inverse of Golden Freddy, where Golden Freddy, at least one of the iterations, which is bizarre, because in FNAF 4, Golden Freddy is a yellow bear with a purple hat and bow tie. In FNAF 4, that same game, Nightmare is described as Golden Freddy's original design, the inverse, where Golden Freddy's original design is a yellow bear with a black hat and bow tie. But Nightmare is the inverse of that, where it's a black bear with a yellow hat and bow tie, yellow accessories. So it's the inverse of that.
Yet somehow, the ultimate difficulty of that custom night is still called Golden Freddy Mode. This is no coincidence. Scott has always linked the highest level of challenge, the most amount of anger and violence from these animatronics, to some version of Golden Freddy. Not once, not twice, every single time. And if that pattern holds here too, then the mere existence of this game, this scenario, is tied to Golden Freddy, and you're about to see why. We've reached the starting point of a roadmap, the fact that Ultimate Custom...
Also, not only that, but getting even more granular. If we're going off of games being released, FNAF 1 through FNAF 5's dislocation, right, FNAF 5. Night 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Normal nights in FNAF. FNAF 6, Pizzeria Simulator, is a extra bonus night that gives you a lot of lore implications, a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of hidden story that you otherwise would not have seen if you just simply played as the game is titled Five Nights at Freddy's. If you play the 6th night, you get a lot of lore implications, a lot of story. Let's be honest, FNAF 6 Pizzeria Simulator has a lot of story. Is it confusing? Yes. And then FNAF 7 is Ultimate Custom Night, the bonus night, the fun arcade night where you get to dictate how easy or hard that challenge is.
Night is deeply tied to Golden Freddy, and the reason for that is hidden in the voice lines. This goes way deeper than just suggesting the vengeful spirit might be Golden Freddy. It's gonna help us learn his identity, details about the timeline, and what makes him so different from all the other ghosts. Now, as most people understand, Ultimate Custom Night is William Afton's personal hell, a space controlled by the vengeful spirit. But that spirit and William aren't the only ones here. In this version of events, the animatronics aren't just conjured up images attacking us like Gibby's quote retweets, they're communicating. They're giving us lore. And this is actually a unique design choice in FNAF. Because for most of the series, the animatronics either lie or they don't even understand what's happening themselves. But here, a large number of them understand the situation. Let's listen to their lines and see where they're trying to point us. Now, the vengeful spirit isn't the only one speaking here. There are 3 types of speakers in UCN. The vengeful spirit, the characters the vengeful spirit has animated, and other spirits. Our focus is going to be on 2 specific characters that emerge from these categories. Everything else points back to them. First, the vengeful spirit.
We've only just begun. I will never let you leave. I will never let you rest.
This is how it feels, and you get to experience it over and over and over again, forever. I will never let you leave.
These lines aren't really reactive like the others in the game. They clearly come from the entity in control, the one deciding what you see, the one deciding who speaks, the one deciding everything that happens here. This is not just any other victim trapped inside this weird world. This is the creator of the weird world. They can remake things from the past. They can trap William inside this mental loop, this nightmare. They can project whatever images they need to into William's mind to torture him again and again and again. And that ability matters more than anything else about the vengeful spirit, because we've already seen someone with that exact ability. Golden Freddy, projecting hallucinations, appearing where he shouldn't, and breaking the rules of space-time. In FNAF 4, everything revolves around nightmares, and the final bosses are both Golden Freddy variants. The game even includes a Golden Freddy plush that appears to manifest things from future events and project them into where the crying child's walking around. And in the movie, Golden Freddy is directly, undeniably shown trapping Mike in a dreamlike space and projecting custom scenarios for him.
Even though the movie kind of ruins the whole vengeful spirit thing, because in the FNAF 1 movie, again, the boy, hold on, let me rewind a little bit, just so I want to talk about him when he's on screen. Yeah, here, this kid right here. He is, at least my viewpoint, this is the one who possesses Golden Freddy, the vengeful spirit. He is Cassidy. Now, again, different from book canon and game canon. Book canon, Cassidy is a girl with black hair and like a yellow, like ponytail or pigtail, like ribbons around their hair. And in Ultimate Custom, like the game, it's at minimum a boy with blue eyes. Here you have this blonde kid where it's kind of hard to see what eye color there are, but regardless. Right, if Cassidy is talked about as this vengeful spirit who torments William Afton and traps him in purgatory and is vengeful because of, again, he was killed more brutally than the other kids. And here, in the movie, for the most part, Cassidy, if this is who the character is called, is a pretty chill kid overall, right? Like, yeah, you know, you may talk about they have like more sinister intentions of wanting Abby for some nefarious purpose, and that nefarious purpose may be having Abby be put into the Ella doll spring-locked suit and have her be spring-locked and turned into an animatronic, become one of them. Like, maybe. But overall, they're not really that vengeful. They're not really that demented. Like, they're a pretty chill person overall. I mean, you want to say they're vengeful because they kill the mom character who wants to take custody of Abby. I mean, she's a bad character from the very beginning. She shuts up MatPat and doesn't give him the internet attention justice that he rightfully deserves. And that is sentenced to death because we're not giving MatPat the attention he deserves.
Space and projecting custom scenarios for him, which means the powers we see in UCN aren't new to the series, and neither is their user. The vengeful spirit is undeniably Golden Freddy. We've made progress on the roadmap, but that still leaves one question. Which version of Golden Freddy are we actually looking at? Because one of the characters he animates is about to answer that for us.
He's here and always watching, the one you shouldn't have killed.
This is one of a few lines that references the vengeful spirit, and I've chosen this one for a particular reason. I find it hard to believe that Toy Chica, Toy Freddy, and yes, Mangle are speaking as actual lone spirits here. The toys have not been presented in that way in any media. I do not think the spirit of Mangle is talking. That means that Mangle is a projection from the vengeful spirit. With that in mind,
also, not only that, but we don't even believe that a kid is possessing Mangle, the animatronic from FNAF 2. That's why they, up until this point, they never had speaking lines or anything. There was always that like constant static, like technology where the constant buzzing. And interpretation of that is that technically a dog's brain and cerebral cortex is a lot smaller than a human's. That's why the other characters are, you know, moaning and breathing from the original games, but Mangle isn't doing that. Instead, it has this like technology, like buzzing, whirring sound. At least that's how other people interpret it, and I kind of believe it because I don't have a counter argument.
And notice that they refer to the vengeful spirit as him. The vengeful spirit reveals themselves to be a boy. Now, the argument has been made that the him being referred to is Golden Freddy. But in this case, I don't think that works. First of all, the vengeful spirit himself is the creator of the Mangle that says this. and he consistently shows up as a human face, not as Golden Freddy. He wants us to know he's a human. Secondly, even if it is the spirit in Mangle saying this, the ones who are arguably spirits, like Bonnie and Chica, always refer to themselves as the characters they are. Their minds are still in that world, which seems like it would be evidence for them referring to Golden Freddy with this. Until you remember that Golden Freddy isn't dead. That's a character. William Afton did not stab the copyrighted character Golden Freddy. And last of all, the name of the Mangle sprite, all the way back in FNAF 2, when Golden Freddy is frantically teleporting around, is called He Was Here. We've narrowed it down further. The Vengeful Spirit is a young boy that possesses Golden Freddy, with the power to project things into reality, and that's closely tied to the dream world, to nightmares. And when we combine all this information that we know is solid, we come away with a very awkward answer. Golden Freddy, nightmares, projection, memory. There's one candidate that fits this perfectly: the bite victim. A child whose entire story is built around fear, who debuts in a game about dreams, who is definitely linked to the bedroom from those dreams, as seen in Secret of the Mimic. A child from a game that involves some kind of warping of time with the Fredbear plush. We have to be dealing with the bite victim. But I can hear you yelling at your screens. William didn't kill the bite victim, did he? And I'm inclined to agree. But as you're about to see in a few minutes, there is undeniable evidence that something about this kid's death is suspicious. But now that we've honed in on the bite victim who was bitten by Fredbear and is the protagonist of FNAF 4, we need to zone in on the two characters I mentioned at
The protagonist of FNAF 4, do you mean the character we play as and see in the minigames, or the character that we play as... Oops. Oh, I actually went into Photoshop. I don't know if you saw that. But the character that we play as throughout the nights. Because, again, FNAF 4 is very confusing. And I remember when FNAF 4 first came out, it was talked about that we play as the bite victim, the FNAF 4 crying child in the nights. And we are basically being reminded of these nightmares, these animatronics throughout the nights, basically in our coma as we are clinging on to life until we get the flatline and we die. And that's why Golden Freddy, Fredbear, is the only character we deal with in Night 5. Because for history lesson, we get the, was not the Buddy of 87 incident where he's shoving them out the Fredbear, and the following night, we are playing against Golden Freddy by himself in Night 5. We are being reminded of the animatronic that bit us for 6 hours. But it has been interpreted now that we have been wrong this entire time, where potentially it's not us playing as the FNAF 4 crying child in the nights of FNAF 4. We could potentially be playing as Michael Afton, where instead of it being, animatronics, provoking fear response after our bite incident, and be reminded of that, it could potentially be an experimentation given by William Afton through hallucinogenic gas that's being pumped into the FNAF 4 bedroom, and it's William Afton watching from cameras in the dislocation bunker of what happens through sound illusion discs and other fear responses of what can happen, right? And we play as Michael Afton because, of course, we play as Michael Afton in every game. And instead of us being reminded of our own bite incident, instead, Michael Afton's being reminded of killing his brother through these animatronics. Because again, that explains why the Second Friend Flush has the remote control that is tied to camera switching. Why in this dislocation bunker, there's not only the same Golden Freddy plush with the camera switcher, but there's also multiple cameras that look at the FNAF 4 bedroom? Why potentially the same FNAF 4 bedroom or a mock-up of it is in that secret room in Edwin's house in a costume manner? None of it is real. It's all William Afton using it as an experimentation chamber to see what happens when someone's confronted with fear.
The start of this section, Nightmare and Nightmare Fredbear.
We know who our friends are, and you are not one of them.
These two are tricky. I've put them in category 2 for this theory. Characters the Vengeful Spirit has animated, but this presents a problem. I believe that Nightmare Fredbear in FNAF 4 is an actual being or ghost. Same with Nightmare. I think it's Bite Victim in Michael's mind. As we've established, Golden Freddy is a dream hijacker. He controls Mike's dreams in the movie. He would appear in Michael Afton's dreams in FNAF 4. And yes, he creates a dreamscape for William Afton in UCN. And this is so confusing because Cassidy, the character we've assumed the Vengeful Spirit was for years, has no reason to project into Michael Afton's dreams. And we can be pretty sure it is something projecting into his dreams because in the logbook, when he's asked what recent dreams he's had, he draws Nightmare or Nightmare Fredbear. So when Golden Freddy's spirit is communicating in the logbook, it just so happens to also be infiltrating Michael's mind at that same time. Yet here in UCN, Golden Freddy is undoubtedly using a similar power. So what on earth is going on?
What on earth is going on is this is going to be very simple and easy to explain and understand. If you detected my sarcasm, then congrats to you. But Golden Freddy has multiple kids, multiple spirits tied to him. And before you click off the video and dislike the video and give me a bunch of hate before click on the video for the blasphemy I just said, hold on for a second. As I've said earlier, I don't believe that Mangle has a dead kid possessing Mangle. This series uses animatronic possession loosely, where, sometimes there could be something like the FNAF 1 animatronics, where a dead kid is stuffed into the animatronic and their dead soul possesses the animatronic, give him new life, and that's how they're walking around and being possessed. Right? The core 4 in FNAF 1. Then you have something like Mangle, where, I would say Mangle, Balloon Boy, JJ, and the other clown doll animatronics that we see in this location, they are possessed, but I don't believe a kid was killed and stuffed into the Balloon Boy animatronic. I don't believe that for a second. Balloon Boy is possessed on his own. Now, how is he possessed? I cannot tell you, but my point is, this series uses possession very loosely, and there's multiple ways it can happen. You can have something that's very simple, where it's like, hey, dead kid, stuffed animatronic, possession. Simple. You have someone like Mangle or Balloon Boy or JJ or any of those other clown animatronics or the Minarinas, where they're clearly possessed, but that doesn't mean a dead kid was tied to their soul in some way. They're just possessed through other means that I cannot explain. But then you have Golden Freddy, an animatronic that has multiple characters tied to them. The FNAF 4 Crying Child is tied to them through the Second Friend Fillberry plush of holding his favorite character. Him being shoved in the mouth of a Golden Freddy standing character, and that's why he's tied to Golden Freddy, because he's being possessed, or at least reminded of the character that killed him. Right? That all makes sense. And then, you have the, It's Me, Golden Freddy stuff as well, where it's the FNAF 4 Crying Child, basically coming in consciousness and glitching and appearing, teleporting inside the FNAF offices, who we presume to be we as a player, Michael Afton. It's the younger brother reaching out to his older brother saying, hey, it's me, it's your younger brother, who is dead, but also not dead anymore. But that's not the only interpretation of Golden Freddy, is it? There's other people, like Cassidy, who can be tied to Golden Freddy. But then it's like, wait, how does that make sense if the FNAF or Crying Child is tied to Golden Freddy, and then you have Cassidy who's tied to Golden Freddy? How does that work then? Well, in book canon, this is something that happens quite a bit, where there's multiple kids, multiple spirits tied to animatronics. For instance, in the Fazer Fright story books, in the epilogue, it's talk about the Stitch Ray story, where it's a story where the Stitch Wraith, a character who is, I mean, for lack of a better term, is basically death. It's a character who has a black robe, is a hooded, cloaked character, and is basically able to touch somebody and they die. So basically just death. But anyways, it has come out in the epilogue of those stories that multiple characters are tied to the Stitch Wraith, because one character is able to see the top hat. They're able to see, outside. They're able to, see through the cloak. They're able to see what's going outside. The other character cannot see, but they are operating like, the arms and legs of the Stitch Wraith animatronic. Right. And then I'm trying to remember. There's another story that conveniently deals with Golden Freddy, ironically enough. But there's another story where it's, and again, comments, you'll have to help me out with names and details of the story, because I don't remember what book this was from, and I don't remember names, so I apologize. But one of the stories, Fazer Frights, it deals with two kids being at school, and they are confronted by this person with blonde hair and I think green eyes, who is talked about as the new kid. And, eventually, these three students interact with each other, they become friends, and eventually it gets to a point where they go to a Freddy Fazbear's establishment, and for some reason, because, kids will be kids, I guess, the two original kids that we have been interacting with in the story, they decide that, hey, it should be a fun idea for, again, I cannot remember names, so I apologize if this does not make any sense. I cannot remember the names, I apologize. Hey, it should be a good idea for this new kid to go up to this, this slumped over Golden Freddy animatronic. And instead of being pushed into it or being like, why should I do that? That's stupid. He goes over to the animatronic willingly, and he's like, yeah, sure. So he goes up to the animatronic, and not only does he see something inside the Golden Freddy animatronic, he sees a tuft of hair. I think it was black hair, if I'm not mistaken. But once he gets close enough to the Golden Freddy animatronic, it bites him. And the two kids who decide to pull off this prank of, hey, you should go up to his Golden Freddy animatronic and see what happens, and it bites the new kid. Instead of alerting authorities, alerting police, adult, or something, they just yeet out of there. They just leave the pizzeria and don't talk about it again. They're like, yeah, this person's being bitten, being killed by this animatronic, and we're just gonna get out of here. We're just gonna leave. So good luck with that. And then one of the two kids goes back to the Freddy's location. I want to say a week or two later, he goes back to the animatronic to see if the kid's body's even there anymore, and it's mysteriously gone. So he gets up closer to the Golden Freddy animatronic, and he suffers the same fate of once he gets close enough, that Golden Freddy attacks him, bites him, and then kills him. So, again, I apologize for not remembering names of those characters, but to me and the Citrus story, like that is, at least the books, point us in direction where there can be multiple kids' souls tied to these animatronics. And Golden Freddy, not only that, but having one of the books, one of the stories, being a character, there's potentially multiple characters tied to Golden Freddy specifically, that cannot be a coincidence.
We finally moved forward on a roadmap. The bite victim seems undoubtedly to be the vengeful spirit and the one in control of Golden Freddy. But how? Luckily, as we travel down this road, we see something on the side. The subscribe button! And once we press it and subscribe to T-Dreads because we like this video and want more, we see Sister Location. There's one detail in Sister Location that completely challenges the idea that the bite victim's death was only because of his stupid chud brother, Michael. And once you see it, you might question the fact that this was just a coincidence. In Sister Location, there's a hidden map in the breaker room, and at first glance, it just looks like a layout of the facility, but it's not. Because if you have these things called eyeballs, you'll recognize something. That map isn't just the underground bunker. It's the FNAF 4 gameplay area, the plush trap hallway, and the crying child's house, the path, and Fredbear's. This is the exact place where Bite Victim lived. And then there's the detail that matters most. Inside that house, in the child's bedroom, there's a white dot, a marker, someone being observed. The dot is identical to the other dots that represent people being tortured by William Afton in his experiments. So think about this for a second. The other parts of this map are for observations that subject people to incredible amounts of fear. And up here in this room, we have a child whose entire story revolves around how scared he is. One we know is being watched. This doesn't prove everything, but it strongly suggests something we've been ignoring. That the bite victim wasn't just a kid who had some bad luck and got crushed. We know for a fact that he was part of an observation. And both of our other observation examples are William Afton's torture chambers.
I would say it kind of depends on, because obviously FNAF 4 and Sister Location are connected. Like, no duh, congrats on my logical reason that they're connected. Like, no. I would say it just depends on what game you think comes first. Does FNAF 4 come first or Sister Location? And this is something that's been widely and hotly debated about. I'm in the camp that Sister Location has to come first. Because it gives reason as to why in the FNAF 4 house, the girl's room is empty. Because Sister Location is tied to Elizabeth Afton, the sister. If the bedroom is empty, because she is already dead. She's already been scooped out by Baby and is underneath the FNAF 4 house in Sister Location bunker. That's why her bedroom is empty. That's also why the FNAF 4 crying child is scared of the pizzeria. He's scared of the animatronics because he saw his sister get killed. He saw what happens when a kid gets too close to one of these animatronics. They scoop them out and kill them. Which also connects to the spooky ghost stories that the other conveniently but annoyingly pigtail girl with red hair and green eyes talking about, oh, well, you know what happens, they, stuff you inside a suit and never tell anybody. It's like, yeah, that's kind of the same thing of what presumably the FNAF 4 crying child saw happen to his sister in Sister Location. But, I understand the inverse where, Sister Location has to come after because it wouldn't make any sense then because, the Funtime animatronics were, again, made to lure and encapsulate kids and to harness enough remnant. Why would you do that first? Why would that be very early on the timeline? There'd be no reason for you to make Funtime animatronics to lure and encapsulate kids, right? Because, some interpretations are William Afton makes the Funtime animatronics to lure and encapsulate kids to harness enough remnant to put the bite victim, the FNAF 4 crying child, back together in robot form or some have you. And that's why he's harnessed enough remnant. So that would make sense why his location is after the fact. It's William Afton's goal to put the FNAF 4 crying child back together. But then you have the issue of what is he scared of in the pizzeria? What is making him scared? Why does Fredbear have stomach teeth in the stomach region? Right? Why is the girl's bedroom empty? You see why? There's an interpretation for both ways where it's like, this would make sense for FNAF 4 to be first because of these reasons, but then this location makes sense for it to be first because of these reasons, but then it contradicts itself. And you wonder why this franchise is complicated, especially timelines.
If what I'm saying is true, his death doesn't just happen. The entire thing is monitored by William Afton in some way. Notice, too, the gray dots, that all represent evil killer animatronics. The FNAF 4 gang, who wants to kill you, Plushtrap, who wants to kill you, the Funtimes, who definitely want to kill you, and Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, one of which kills you. Now, why would William do this? I don't quite know, I'll be honest. But there is enough evidence to suggest that something about the crying child's life and death could have been orchestrated by William Afton. Our roadmap progress is looking good. The bite victim is a vengeful boy whose death may be planned by Afton, and we know he possesses Golden Freddy. He's associated with dreams, memories, and all that. So now we can move into one of UCN's mechanics for more proof. Now, if Sister Location suggests that bite victim was tortured and possibly killed by Afton, there's something else in UCN that starts to feel a lot more significant, something that may reference this fact directly. In Ultimate Custom Night, there's a mechanic called the Death Coin. Use it on certain animatronics, and you can remove them from the night entirely. They're gone, erased from existence, just like Gibby should be. But there's one character where this doesn't work the way it should. If you try to remove Golden Freddy using the Death Coin, when nobody else is there to take his place in murdering you, something very different happens. You can't get rid of him. You trigger an Easter egg. Fredbear appears instead and attacks you. He just said, let's find a suit that's right for you.
I mean, hold on. I want to play that again. Couldn't you hear that? All right, we're going to play it again. Matt's volume. All right, let's hear that again. Let's find a suit that's right for you. All right, let's hear very closely. Get out your listening ears. Maybe be like bats, where you have supersonic hearing. All right, let's hear it again. Let's find a suit that's right for you. You get that? Okay.
He just said, let's find a suit that's right for you. Under our theory.
Also, yes, I know it does say that. I'm just poking fun. I'm just making a meme about it. It does say, let's find a suit that's right for you. You just have to do a lot of audio wizardry to understand what he said. A lot like in the FNAF mobile port of Help Wanted, where you finally get to interact with Glitch Tribe after you let the 16 grave sites. You hear like Glitch Tribe calling out for Mike and talking about how he will always come back.
That line functions as a direct callback to the only time we actually see a child being forced into a Fredbear suit, the Bite of 83. It's a jab at William about this event, a line that directly mirrors the Bite victim's cause of death. And on top of that, the mere fact you cannot remove Golden Freddy from UCN is more evidence that he's the one orchestrating it. The game even rewards us with lore for trying to. It rewards us with the Fredbear clue. Scott is trying to nudge us toward realizing who exactly the vengeful spirit is. We're almost there, the end of the roadmap where everything's gonna come together. So what's next? Old Man Consequences. If you turn off the AI for every character except OMC and catch a little fishy, you enter a hidden minigame with a quiet lake, nothing to do, just us and Old Man Consequences. Now, if you were new to FNAF during the time of UCN, this would feel completely out of nowhere, but it's not, because we've seen this exact thing before. This isn't the first time Old Man Consequences appears. He shows up in FNAF World. Same lake, same layout, same red environment. And most importantly, the player sprite is the same. There's a consistency here. We aren't seeing new characters, we're seeing old ones. Because in Help Wanted 2, which is not about the...
Not only that, but the coding of Custom Night and FNAF World are connected, where if you reset your progress and like reinstall FNAF World, like you never touched it, never played it a day in your life, and you open up Custom Night, you go to Old Man Consequences, and then you interact with it, and then end the minigame by drawing yourself in the lake. If you then, after drawing yourself in the lake, reopen FNAF World, you'll get a little icon, a little achievement at the bottom of your screen that shows the glitching bear character that you were playing as and drawing yourself in the lake, showing that FNAF World and Custom Night are more connected than you think, which is crazy.
Bite victim, we see a variation of how Old Man Consequences is presented. He appears as an old king with a different design and speaking in broken English. The way OMC manifests changes depending on whose mind is involved. So when we see the exact version from FNAF World in UCN, we're not just seeing a lazy, reused asset, we're seeing the same space. Because FNAF World is absolutely tied to the crying child, and so is UCN. OMC tells you to stop, to leave, to rest your own soul. There's an internal struggle here. One side continuing the cycle, refusing to let Afton go, and another side trying to end it, trying to help the spirit find rest. The only way out of here is to accept OMC's words, put ourselves to rest, and end the game. But in FNAF World, if you do the same thing by drowning in this lake, it leads to a different ending.
It's a butt! God damn it.
Strange one. 3 people sitting together, watching TV. It's quiet and peaceful. If FNAF World exists in the crying child's mind, then this isn't random. It's his idea of a happy ending. Him, his sister, and his older brother. Just the 3 of them, the way it should have been. No wicked father, no murders, no pain. Keep in mind, I'm not saying the player sprite is the bite victim in both cases, only that the consistent environment across both games, as well as the FNAF World Easter eggs on the UCN desk, demonstrate that the same mindscape is responsible for this appearing. We're finally here. The final point on the roadmap, the most important, most overlooked thing in this entire game. Bear of Vengeance.
Oh boy. Oh boy. This I'm very curious about. Because last time I talked about this Bear of Vengeance Fotsy custom night anime, my interpretation, people were disagreeing with. So, alright, let's hop into this. Oh boy, let's rip off the band-aid. Because apparently my interpretation is way out there, bizarre, absurd, which I'm like, think about what franchise we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. You have to think bizarre in order to come to terms with what this franchise is.
A set of cutscenes that, call me crazy, gives us deep insights into the mind of our Bear of Vengeance. From the very first moment the bear appears, his demeanor is clear. He's not lost or confused like we would have expected from the bite victim. He's laser focused on two things: justice and vengeance. That is the emotional foundation of every single line he delivers in these cutscenes. Before anything else is explained, before any context is given, we're introduced to a character whose identity is built around the idea that someone has deeply...
Okay, so if you haven't been here and this is all new to you, my interpretation of Bear of Vengeance is this. The bear is Henry, the Fox is William Afton, and the Mangle character is Michael Afton. And I paused on this screen for a very particular reason. Again, Bear of Vengeance wants justice, and as you see in this text, the heir is ripe of revenge, and the blood on the Fox's hands will finally be scrubbed off with the scouring pad of justice. The Fox's hands, and my interpretation, would be William Afton. The blood on William Afton's hands. I mean, do I need to go further in what that blood is? Of what that would be implying? Do I need to go further? Or do we all understand what the blood would be? 2. Justice is very important because, again, Henry has tried time and time again to bring William Afton to justice, but the problem is, can't really do that because despite William Afton killing kids, they can't really arrest him. They can't really convict him, as you see in the FNAF 1 newspaper clippings where, despite him being arrested, he's not in jail for when he should be because of stuff like the missing children's incident where, hey, we technically can't throw them in jail if we can't find evidence of the dead kids. So, because there's no dead kids, there's no evidence, we have to set him free because there's no evidence of him killing kids, so we gotta let him go. And then you get into stuff like the HRY 223 audio tapes where you hear stuff that we presume HRY 223 to be Henry. A wound first inflicted on me that let spread to others, that I let this monster be created and I did nothing about it. The monster being William Afton. It's time for you to burn in the darkest pit of hell, old friend. But apparently people give me shit for that. That the bear cannot be Henry. Even though Henry's whole point is trying to seek justice and trying to put his former business partner for the justice and the horrible things that he's done to families. Again, that a wound that first let inflicted on me that let spread to others. The Fox is William Afton because he's cunning and again, he's always getting away just at the right moments, always getting free and never getting dealt the justice that he rightfully deserves. And then, this is the loosest interpretation of Michael Afton being Mangle but the interpretation I have is, hey, Fotsy and Mangle are both Fots animals, both Fots characters, and it has been said time and time again, stuff like Sister Location specifically, where Michael Afton looks a lot like his father. He gets confused for his father. They are both animals of the same breed. Again, that's the loosest connection I have. But, I mean, Bear of Vengeance, it feels outright that it's Henry. I don't know how the Bear of Vengeance would be the FNAF 4 crying child, but we move. But again, people are giving me shit for it, saying the Bear of Vengeance is Henry. I'm just saying, there's evidence that says otherwise. That I'm just calling out.
You wronged him and needs to answer for it. That framing alone is already crucial, but it becomes more interesting when you realize this isn't the first time we've seen this kind of thematic setup around Golden Freddy-related figures. Even in external parallels like the New Kid story, Golden Freddy's presence is tied to justice and karmic punishment. And while that story isn't the focus here, the thematic overlap is useful because it increases the consistency with which these two things are linked. But the best argument doesn't come from the books. It comes from what we're shown visually, right here in this cutscene, because the next image is the most important symbolic frame in the entire game. The bear sitting alone under a tree. On the surface, this is simple. But in modern FNAF storytelling, that image is doing so much work because there are three figures in the modern narrative web that repeatedly get tied together through design, symbolism, and story. The Bite Victim, David Murray, and Gregory. They share not merely aesthetics, but a consistent narrative role. All three are associated with being broken in some form. All three are framed as isolated, lonely children dealing with things they're afraid of and that they don't truly understand. And most importantly, for today, all three are repeatedly shown or referenced in contexts that involve sitting under a lone tree on a lone hill. Gregory.
Or that could be Henry sitting on top of the hill, because again, the hill that, at least one of the hills that people are sitting on top of and looking out is talking about the FNAF 6 Lorekeeper ending where you have the gravestones. And if you remember that image, there's one gravestone that is sitting on top of a hill away from all the other grave sites. And what gravestone is it? It is Charlotte, Henry's daughter, on top of a hill. Just saying, you give me shit for saying Bear of Vengeance cannot be Henry as a stretch. But there is a lot of evidence that says, hey, there's at least an interpretation there.
Gregory in particular has been shown here various times. David Murray as well is here in a portrait from his game, and the location itself ends up as the Afton property. It's near the house Afton repossesses from Edwin in the new game. And then you step back further. In FNAF 3, there was that weird detail of three identical childlike balloon boys sitting under a lone tree. They're such subtle details, almost easy to dismiss, but once you start picking up on the fact that Scott shows this tree with these kids again and again and again and again, the pattern becomes difficult to unsee. So when the Bear of Vengeance is shown sitting under a tree, it's not just a random frame, it's deeply important. It's telling you to recognize this repeating tree imagery and who it's always associated with. It's confirming who that Bear of Vengeance is. If Gregory and David Murray are being visually and thematically tied to this motif, then the bear under the tree is not symbolic of Cassidy or Andrew or anybody else. It's pointing toward the Bite Victim. And if that's true, then the implications extend even further, because it would mean the grave on the hill under a lone tree in FNAF 6, the one many interpret as Charlie's
Yep.
grave, may actually belong to the bite victim instead.
Ha. Ha. Okay. So. Okay. So. Let me think about that for a second. So obviously, this gravesite lorekeeper picture shows gravesites of the 5 or 6, or yeah, it would be 6. Shows the 6 kids killed by William Afton. There's Gabriel, who's Freddy. There's Jeremy, who's Bonnie. There's Fritz, who's Fotsy. There's Susie, who's Chica. Excuse me. And then the one in the grass, that is very hidden, but based on, clues from the FNAF security logbook, if you use the crossword puzzle, people decipher the name is Cassidy. And then you have the one off on the end, who, again, people like me have interpreted that to be Charlotte. But now it could be the FNAF RETCONNED child. Now, immediately, my problem is this. So that means, A, Charlotte doesn't have a gravesite at all. That's number 1. And 2, so that would mean both gravestones are tied to Golden Freddy. This one, the FNAF RETCONNED child, and the Cassidy one. Like, the Cassidy one still exists. Right? And 3, if we think about FNAF 4, I don't know why I just said, but if we think about FNAF VR Help Wanted 2, where we are presented with the Princess Quest 4 minigame, where we light these 6 gravestones, you light Chica, Freddy, Fotsy, and Freddy, the core 4, you light one Golden Freddy gravesite, and then the puppet. Those are the 6 you light, not 2 Golden Freddys. Huh. That. I don't know about that. I need more evidence. Charlotte going from an important character to just being outright dismissed, it feels like.
There's an immense amount of evidence supporting that specific interpretation, but it's too much to fully unpack here. So I'll link the FNAF Theory wiki page below. But the final nail in the coffin is that this tree appears...
I just... Now look, playing devil's advocate and kind of going against my own interpretation for a second. Okay, let's just say thoughtful experiment. Let's say we have been wrong this entire time, myself included, that gravesite on the top of the hill is not Charlotte, has never been Charlotte the entire time. Right? Let's just say. That would explain the weird inconsistencies of FNAF Into the Pit. But it also won't. Hear me out. In the story, Charlotte is described as a character who dies outside the pizzeria. William Afton driving up in the purple car, stepping out, killing the kid outside, locked outside the pizzeria, and then driving off. We see that in the FNAF 2 minigame when the puppet is first introduced. We also see it in the security puppet minigame but we also see the aftermath of it in Midnight Motorist. Now, I bring that all up to say, Charlotte is described as a character who's always died outside the pizzeria, away from everybody else. I bring that up to say it has never made sense of how they have always died outside the pizzeria, but are then somehow linked to the 5 other kid victims who are either, lured to a back room and killed and stuffed in the suits, or in FNAF Into the Pit, where 5 victims are dragged onto the pizzeria floor during business hours and shown to everybody. Meaning the dead children's incident, not the missing children's incident, because nothing about them is missing, because they are brought in broad daylight to be shown to everybody. Charlotte has always been the outlier, has always been killed away from everybody else. So, them suddenly having a gravestone with, all the other victims who are part of like the missing children's incident, for instance, has never made sense. So, I will say that it could be an interpretation if we think about it even more. I don't like it. I don't like it at all, because it feels like Charlotte has been less and less of a important character. But if we are thinking about this and going in stream, being like, okay, if we think about that interpretation, Charlotte is not there, then is there any other evidence for it? Could there be any logical explanation for it? And to me, as I'm thinking about it, that is the best logical conclusion I can come to, is Charlotte is always being killed outside, away from everybody else. So it's never made sense for them to suddenly be collected with everybody else on one gravesite. That's never made sense. So, I guess, maybe, I don't know. I need to think about that more, but that is, I disagree with it, but if I had to think about it in this way, that's the best thing I can come up with. But again, let me know in the comments if I am fully off base, or, you can see my vision where I'm coming from, where it's like, yeah, it's never made sense Charlotte to be killed away from everyone else, but then also grouped together. I don't know.
Again, in the same game. Because in another cutscene, Toy Chica, who is widely interpreted as representing William in a honestly kind of weird way, appears in relation to the same tree. She longingly sits under it, reflecting on the idea that tomorrow is another day. A line that can only be tied to the bite victim. Holy evidence nuke! The Bear of Vengeance isn't done giving us lore though, because basically every line matters. Next up, the bear says something we need to lock in on. That he's tried to stop the fox many times. Now, this could be interpreted multiple ways, but if we align the fox with William, this takes—
Oh? Is he doing my interpretation? That he's tried to stop the fox several times, but he's always been able to get away. William Afton is the fox, and Vengeful Bear is Henry. Oh?
On a very specific meaning. It's a pursuit. This is directly seen in Follow Me in FNAF 3, where Shadow Freddy repeatedly leads the animatronics in pursuit of William, culminating in all of the animatronics failing and Golden Freddy's spirit having to go after William himself. He tries to lead the animatronics to attack William night after night after night and is thwarted. The exact structure presented in Bear of Vengeance. Afton, or the fox, repeatedly escaping his grasp again and again.
Or not!
So when the bear says he's tried to stop the fox before—
yeah, I guess that is fair to clip that, because they had me in the first half, not gonna lie.
It can be interpreted as a repeated cycle of attempted justice that he never was able to fully resolve until UCN. Next up, the language takes a turn and becomes kind of symbolic of emotion. The bear describes his anger as something that bleeds red, stretching across all of the fox's domain like a sun over a temple. This is important because it connects directly to the emotional tone of the old man consequences imagery, the deep red of a restless, angry soul that covers the entire scene. And finally, as if the connections weren't obvious enough, the bear ends the cutscene by saying it's his birthday. This is not subtle at all. The bite victim's entire narrative is anchored around a birthday. It's the
I mean, is the birthday actually sound logical evidence? Right? Or is it just a joke? Right? Like, let's call a spade. If we're using the birthday line as, definitive canon and connects the FNAF 4 crying child to that vengeful bear because, it's the birthday, and we know FNAF 4 crying child is a birthday kid. Okay, so by that logic then, if we're taking this a logical extreme, so that means every single line in these anime dubbed cutscenes is real then. So the thoughts wanting bacon that is more than burnt is canon. The frog that follows the vengeful bear everywhere he goes is also canon. The bear wearing that fruit hat is also canon. Ladies and gentlemen, need I remind you of what that implies if we are saying that the bite victim is connected because of the birthday line, what that means if we're taking the logical extreme. So in that case, then everything in that cutscenes are canon then. And I refuse to believe that burnt bacon is part of the FNAF canon. I refuse to believe that.
defining traumatic moment of his fucking life. Oh my god. Now, when we cut to the Fox perspective, things become more ambiguous. There are
Twitch, clip that.
Interpretations that strongly support Michael Afton, especially given traits like the fox watching TV and making the bear do random chores. However, for the sake of this interpretation, there's one line that the fox says that strongly points toward it being William. The trap is set. He repeats this night after night after night. Sound familiar?
He set some kind of trap. I don't know what it was, but he led them there again. He overpowered them, again, and he robbed them of the only thing that they had, again.
So, with this framing, William becomes the one who initiates some sort of trap in Follow Me, and Shadow Freddy is not the trap. He's just responding to it by leading the others there. Now, as the cutscenes continue, there's certainly room for more interpretation about if characters represent Michael, William, or Elizabeth, but if we're being realistic, there is no better candidate for the vengeful bear under the tree whose birthday it is than Bite Victim.
Also, if we're being even more green for a second, it's not the vengeful bear is the birthday. It's the Fox's birthday. That is the line. Right? The bear intentionally decided to, go to the Fox on that day because it was the Fox's birthday. That is the line. It's not the bear's birthday, it's the Fox's birthday. Because, nobody attacks on their birthday.
We finally made it all the way down the road and reached our magical conclusion scroll of wisdom and lore. Let's unroll this scroll and read what our conclusion...
Because, again, that's why he decided it would be a good day for him to attack the Fox. Because, nobody, will do anything about it because it's the Fox's birthday. That's why he chose that day.
Conclusion for today's video is, as demonstrated by the game's entire premise, voice lines, references to outside games, books, interactions, and cutscenes, the Bite Victim is a more likely candidate for vengeful spirit than all of the others combined. My answer is locked in. We learned what he was deprived of that made him so angry. We learned about how he has consistently pursued William and tried to stop him. We learned about his exact powers with dreams and memory, and much, much more. If you enjoyed today's video, subscribe.
All right. So, as we are wrapping up here, what do I think about this video? Again, they're all theories and they're all fun, they're all experiments at the end of the day. So I will say that. But something I will say is, again, I'm in the headcanon that Golden Freddy is a character that can be tied to multiple spirits. Because we see that same thing happen in the books quite a bit, where characters are tied to an animatronic and multiple spirits. Because this is like a huge shot in the dark, and I may have to like go back and rethink about this. But if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Andrew, one of the books, the character with the alligator mask? Wasn't his story another one where he was one of two dead kids' spirits? And Andrew, if you remember, Andrew's a character where his soul latched onto William Afton's body. I say body very loosely because he's literally in the hospital, on a hospital bed, and he doesn't have like eyes. It's just blacked out pupils of where eyes used to be. He doesn't have a nose like Voldemort, and he doesn't have like hands or legs anymore. Like, he is deader than dead. But the nurses and doctors are trying like all these ways to, put him out of his misery and kill him. But for some reason, nothing works. He's still alive because something is attached to his soul and keeping him alive, because they don't want him to die yet, because they're vengeful and they're keeping him in purgatory. They're keeping him in hell because they are not satisfied enough. That's what makes them vengeful. I think that's one of the books, but I'll have to go back and revisit that. So I say all that to say that, I don't think this needs to be a competition where it's like, oh, there's more evidence for the FNAF Crime Child to be tied to Golden Freddy, so Cassidy is just gone now, right? And any other character who's tied to any animatronic is just gone. It's only specifically one character for one animatronic. That's the only way we can have any animatronic possession in this series. Because think about this. Think about Baby. Baby is a character who originally, Circus Baby, had blue eyes. Elizabeth Afton had green eyes, right? But then after Elizabeth Afton got close enough to the Circus Baby animatronic in the Cupcake minigame, every iteration after that, Baby was shown to have green eyes because they have the soul of Elizabeth Afton now, right? Here's why I bring that up. In FNAF Security Breach Ruin, when you go to a secret room, you see a bunch of the plush babies from the plush baby minigame from FNAF VR Help 101. And you notice something very interesting. You notice that on one side of the face has a blue eye and the other side has a green eye. Blue eye for Circus Baby and then green eye for Elizabeth Afton. But that is not the only character that has multiple eye colors on the same face, and specifically blue and green. Think about David with the Tiger Rock animatronic. Again, another character that has one blue eye and one green eye. Which to me is the series pointing out of multiple eye colors on the same face could be tied to multiple characters harnessing the same animatronic. Again, that is my headcanon, that is my belief, but let me know your thoughts of what you believe on that, on my interpretations of all this. Because again, at the end of the day, I enjoy FNAF. I enjoy the series. I enjoy talking about it, and I think theories are good, fun little thought experiments at the end of the day. They're fun, and I'll never stop doing these.